And with that, welcome back again. Time for our next set of conversations as we talk about ESG investing and the big questions around it. Let me also quickly invite our speakers on the main screen. We're joined by Kaku Nakate, President and Country Head, Bank of America, Dr. Praveer Sinha, CEO and Managing Director, the Tata Power Company Limited, Anshula Kant, Managing Director and Chief Financial Officer, the World Bank Group. And the one person who's going to be stitching all the perspectives together for us all is Chaitanya Kalia, Partner, National Leader, Climate Change and Sustainability Services, EY India. So let's deep dive into our next session starting right now.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Kavya. Thanks, E.T. Welcome to all the panelists. It's very nice to see all of you together here and interact on this important topic, which is given to you. And we have about 30 minutes time to let's do some justice to that. What I have thought through, I have thought of some questions, and you all have so much of experience. I will ask them and request if you can share your experience around that. So I'll start first. I'll go with Anshula Madam. Anshula Madam, we talk about ESG investing, and there are so many ESG matrices they are coming up, and companies are looking at it, disclosing about that. In your global perspective, what kind of ESG matrices they are driving the financial market today? What's your view on that?
Thank you, Chaitanya, and it's really a pleasure for me to be here today. To my mind, the key challenge facing financial markets today is to help direct savings from developed markets into underdeveloped and emerging markets. Because, to reach the sustainable activities in emerging and frontier markets, where the need is huge, but the flows are still very small. The share of emerging market sustainable debt is still at about 40% of total global flows. So a global approach to sustainable finance is very much needed. And investor behavior is changing, and that is what is actually driven. I think currently the size of the sustainable market is about $2 trillion, but that is still less than 2% of the international bond markets. So there is a need to scale up rapidly. The good thing that we are seeing is that investors are increasingly becoming aware of environmental and social challenges. So most investors are now explicitly analyzing and integrating ESG risks into their investment decisions. Many have funds with different approaches. Some are marked as, ESG or SRI or impact. Some have negative screening approaches where they categorically exclude certain sectors. And some have a more inclusive approach, a best-in-class approach, I would say. So broadly, I see three main approaches to ESG that are gaining momentum in the markets today. One is ESG integration, which means incorporating ESG issues that may affect the risk-return assessment of an asset. The second is thematic ESG investments. And these investments target sectors with sustainability relevance, where financial outperformance is expected over a long-term perspective, example, renewables or clean technologies. And then we have impact investing, which couples sustainability and social impact along with social financial returns. So, there are many ESG issues that investors can focus on, but largely they are focusing on two areas. One is, of course, climate change, and the other is human capital development.
Excellent point, madam. So, I really relate with the thematic area, the impact investment part, and the integration with the ESG that you have talked about. That brings me to, another question, which I would like to ask Kaku madam. Madam, with the bank, how do you think that ESG is getting integrated into your product and services? Do you relate with...
On climate change, we have all seen events and high impacting globally. And it is clear that
can you please go ahead, Kaku ma'am? Sorry, there was some lag probably, if you can hear me.
Yeah. So Chaitanya, it's right. I think sustainable finance is a big focus for every bank nowadays.
Mhm.
And we do need to play our role in really convincing the monies to be spent in the right direction. So from the product perspective, I think, first of all, we have a lot of research basically done in the sustainable sectors, whether it's EVs or whether it is renewable companies, or whether it's existing companies really cutting down their, say, packaging costs, etc., that actually really focus on it. We have been working and giving green loans, wherein the loan rates are slightly lower than the other, because we do understand that the cost of implementing ESG in short term may be slightly high, but it evens out in the longer term, the benefits that it really gives. The other thing that we have been doing actively is to really encourage supply chain financing. So we do run programs on supplier chains where we assist the company that when their suppliers really meet the ESG targets, we actually discount their trade at a little more discount so that the interest rates really come down. So the whole idea is to really push the conversation and bring it onto the table to realize that ESG is important. And then as a bank, to add, Chaitanya, we have been always in the forefront because Brian, our CEO, believes in ESG. He was one of the first leaders in 2014 and we've embraced it. So just to give you an idea, in 1920, we just raised a bond for COVID, which is social, and we raised $1 billion and invested into across the country, different countries on the
Sure.
bond, usage. And then we also raised in September 20 a equality progress bond, which means bring into account the inclusive nature. And we use a lot of money for the Hispanic Blacks, for their entrepreneurship, for their housing, affordable housing, etc. So there are very many ways where we actually engage with the clients to bring ESG topics at the forefront.
That's wonderful, madam. Really, really encouraging. But you see, when we talk to the entrepreneurs, when we talk to the business leader, they have a view. Sometimes they think that, the cost of ESG implementation, at least is short term, going to be high. So let me get back to you in a moment. But in meanwhile, Dr. Sinha, do you have any view? You are leading an organization and they are really into forefront of ESG transition, or transition to a low carbon economy. Do you think that this ESG transition is going to be costly initially, or in a short term, or overall? What's your view on that?
Thank you, Chaitanya, and thank you to ET for having me for this program. I think when we look at ESG, we cannot look at it on a very short-term perspective. It has to be a long-term perspective.
Absolutely.
And definitely in the long-term perspective, we strongly believe that we have just one planet, and the cost of not doing is much higher than the cost of doing the right things. And I think for us, the leadership is not only in talking about it, but also demonstrating. And in Tata Power, we took a stand that we will become net zero carbon. And it's not just a net zero carbon of 2050 or maybe 2045, but also what we can do right away. And we have plans that as our old plants complete their useful life, we'll start decommissioning. And this may happen in next 3 to 4 years itself, that the first of the decommissioning will start. And by 2030, some more of the plants will get decommissioned, the coal-based plants. And progressively, we will be closing down many of our plants once they complete the useful life and the PPA term. Also, both for the liquid waste and solid waste, a whole lot of initiatives have been taken, though the country is talking. For the first time, the FGD we had put up in Mumbai way back in 1988, the first FGD. And we were conscious that a plant of this capacity in Mumbai city, we need to be absolutely benign in terms of environment. And to that extent, whether it is expensive or whatever it is in terms of technology, we need to invest that. And I think we have proved always that doing the right thing for environment is the right decision in the long run, and whatever cost we incur is very small compared to the overall benefit that it will bring. And most of our businesses, and you would see that has been very ESG focused. The sustainability part of it, the social dimension as to how we bring together the community, the customer part of it. We always believe that all our actions has to be customer focused, and they have to be in the center of the whole business decision making. So I think for us, this is very much a part of our DNA, and we believe that the ESG ecosystem that has been developed and is being talked about becomes more focused as we go forward. And we will be right there in the front, leading it to ensure that we not only lead this, but also inspire other industries, other companies to take these initiatives. So we are very much in the forefront, and we strongly believe, and we will continue to do that in future.
Absolutely right. I'm sure a lot of listeners are going to be inspired by the journey that you have taken. What I have seen also happening in the, in this ESG space, a lot of regulations are coming in. There are certain regulations which are likely to come in India. Those are mostly about, in the public domain, and they're more about disclosures. What is the view? And if I come back to Anshula, madam, to you, sitting at a position where you have a global perspective and view, what do you think, what do you make of this regulation? How it is going to impact the financial sector and financial cash flows when the ESG regulations are kind of, at least on the disclosure side, they have been asked by the organization to look at. So any views on that, madam?
Yeah, and sorry about, I think I lost my connection for a minute, but it was great to hear Kaku and Dr. Sinha's views. I think they really resonate very strongly with what we are trying to do at the World Bank. So, as I mentioned earlier, when I was making the earlier point, that the two focus areas are actually climate change and human capital development. So actually it is investor engagement which is becoming increasingly a driving factor for greater regulation, especially with regards to corporate reporting and disclosures. So, regulatory environment is already shifting from being focused exclusively for financial disclosures to include sustainability metrics that go beyond short-term financing impact on the reporting entity. And we work largely with national governments, subnational governments. And there also we observe a trend towards adopting long-term and intermediate targets in the transition process. For example, development of green sectors of the economy or introducing greater efficiencies. Such targets are likely to come along with their own regulatory arrangements, and also they will need relevant metrics to track the progress in this transition. So from the World Bank, we are actually assisting client countries, several countries in fact, in developing green taxonomies, sustainable reporting guidelines for the financial sector, and also the development impact of investing frameworks. So, climate change basically is at the core of these green taxonomies, which we are helping, and other countries and jurisdictions are developing on their own. And to my mind, these taxonomies really are of critical importance, because with these taxonomies, investors and issuers both are on the same page. They understand what the expectations are, and this sort of prevents greenwashing, this is a new term that we have heard, but it prevents greenwashing. And this will bring basically information and comparability to the ESG market so that investors can make informed decisions about ESG. So given the very urgent need, we foresee a top-down and a bottoms-up approach for expanded and more standardized corporate reporting on climate-related metrics and disclosures. So for instance, those disclosures will relate to CO2 emissions per year, assets exposed to physical climate risks, specifying the nature and scope of such exposures, fossil fuel inventories at the risk of becoming stranded assets, and 2-degree centigrade alignment plans and strategies. Also, on the human capital front, we already see a lot of investor pressure on greater reporting and disclosures and these relate to human rights across supply chains, diversity, equity, and inclusion, workforce well-being, health, and safety. So we expect greater oversight and regulations to develop around these human capital development issues as well from the subnational and national governments. Back to you, Chaitanya.
No, absolutely. I relate with that, madam, because all these impact are ultimately to the people, to the planet. So regulations are, as I said, they are mostly be in the public domain and going to impact on the public domain. And it's such an important thing. I want to stick to the same point, and I'll come back to you, Kaku ma'am. As a bank, do you think this regulation and some disclosure requirement framework such as TCFD or SFDR from EU, they are coming up? Are they asking bank to make that shift in terms of, again, your product offering, service offering, or, will it help bank in terms of reducing their NPA? What kind of impact do you see of this, the regulations that are likely to come up?
So to add to what Anshula madam said and Chaitanya, to answer your question, in reality, I think these disclosures are only healthy, because as you make these disclosures, there is a good amount of governance. And I think also the social aspect needs to be accelerated, which is on inclusive growth, getting women empowerment, LGBT empowerment, fairness in basically wages across, genders. All these are also really making workplaces better places to work. As a result, obviously, the results also come out better, Chaitanya. So if you really go to S&P and you see the companies which follow ESG principles have outperformed the companies that have not really taken it too hard, about 3% for the last 5 consecutive years. And even if I look at the global portfolios, now 29% of the equity flows are actually going into ESG related activities. So there's
That's a pretty high number. Yeah, absolutely. That's very high number, and very glad to know that it is increasing. And I'm also glad that among us we have Dr. Sinha. Dr. Sinha, now in India, we have this regulation coming up, BRSR. This year it is voluntary, next year it is mandatory. And like Kaku ma'am said that, rating agencies such as S&P, they will have more information available now onwards about the companies. So it's like both sides of the coin. One is that through regulation, companies are expected to disclose more. And on the other side, more information will be available to some of these rating agencies. So I have several questions, but then time is limited. So I'll ask this. Number one, what's your view on that? Is it going to benefit? Are the banks going to help us with more information, giving some, few basis point benefit here and there? What's your view if you are rated very well based on the agency? So how you see that entire dynamics from regulatory disclosure to the agencies looking at your ESG score and taking it to the financial institution?
I think it's a very good move in the sense that this will give an opportunity when any assessment like this happens, and it's already happening, and we have been offering ourselves for the last 4 years. You are able to benchmark yourself not only compared to the Indian companies, but also globally. And it gives you an opportunity that which are the areas that you need to improve in the E or S or G, and what is it that the good companies are doing. And all these indexes which are there has always helped companies to improve their performance. So I think to that extent, it's a very welcome move. Also, as a company, we are also going towards the science-based target initiative, so that we are able to assess on a very scientific basis that what sort of initiatives that we will take will have a tangible benefit, and how it can be monitored. So anything that can be measured can be monitored and improved upon. And I think the way the industry is moving, it's going to help them to only improve and enhance their performance. Now, it's also a fact that lenders and investors globally are looking at this very closely, because their future investments that they would like to do is not just investment which gives them a return, but also in investment which promotes the ESG in totality. And the triple bottom line that we have been hearing for the last many years, I think it is now getting translated in terms of the type of investment and types of support.
Right.
Capital will get impacted if you're not doing good in all these aspects. So I think it's very important going forward that this becomes a law also and is enforced. And from our side, we believe not only in just in compliance, but also taking the initiative of doing much more than compliance.
Right. Absolutely. So I think I have limited time probably, but it's important to touch upon one significant question that I have and really want to ask that given all of your experience. So Anshula Madam, what should we do? What should listener do to enhance their ESG performance from your point of view? What should they do?
So I think, Chaitanya, the writing is on the wall. And it is staring at us in the face. I think the laggards are going to lose out. And as Dr. Sinha said, it is, and Kaku mentioned, it is about the long-term perspective. So investors who are there for the long haul, issuers who are looking at long-term sustainability of their businesses, I think they need to start moving towards, I mean, there are nomenclatures, net zero declarations and all of that. These are important. These labels are important sort of to guide you and track your progress towards that target. But the fact is that, climate change is real. And, all the problems that you see, and India is actually one of the most vulnerable countries to impact of climate change. And clearly, investors today are looking at the safety, sustainability, long-term returns from their investments. There are reputational risks today for investors if they invest in areas which are not climate friendly, so to say. So I think the writing is on the wall, and clearly in many areas we have an advantage, that we can leapfrog to more, cutting edge technologies and actually just skip some of those transition phases which many other countries may have, to developed countries may have gone through. So I think let us be proactive, and we in India are very good at being very proactive, very innovative, and let's adopt all the good practices that we see around the world to make this a sustainable future for all of us.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And I think the similar question I would ask to Kaku ma'am as well, with a little twist in the sense that question is what our listener, everyone should do to enhance their ESG performance. And the twist that I want to add from a banker's point of view, what they should do better, where should they focus so that, they get the benefit of all the schemes and, the products that banks are going to launch related to ESG in future.
So Chaitanya, to add to what Anshula ma'am already said, I think it's very important that the best saving is the interest savings. And clearly the products are going where the interest savings are increasing with ESG compliance, frankly. So as I mentioned earlier on the supply chain financing, even say as an individual, we could put money into green deposits, kind of, highlighting that the green deposits have to be used for sustainable projects. And then I would say also, you'll be surprised, but we have done a couple of bonds, say, for example, for UPL, where if they meet the ESG compliance, then their bond costs them 7 basis less. But if they don't comply, then they have to pay 5 basis more. And then Axis, we raised the AT1, which was again ESG focused. So more and more monies are coming in. And just to add to the statistic that I quoted earlier, just this first half of 2021 has seen $200 billion coming into equity, which is double that of last year. So that, the monies are in front of you, and we should all try and engineer, and technology will follow. So I'm sure Mr. Sinha is going to come out with fantastic technologies, which is going to bring down our costs, and probably EVs is the way to go going forward.
Yeah, straight to Dr. Sinha, to your comments on the what needs to do to enhance ESG performance. Your views, please.
I think the speed at which we need to work has to increase manifold. We've taken very long-term views in many of these things. Today, if we talk about E, the technology intervention, the new technologies, and the funding that is required, a huge amount of R&D funding, whether it is in terms of storage or EV, or in any of the renewable technologies that we need to do. I think there is requirement of huge amount of funding in these areas. Secondly, on the sustainability part of it, there are still large number of people globally who do not have access, especially to energy. And the difference between the have and have-nots, we need to bridge that gap. And the energy poverty and the access which is there, which still is a challenge. How do we bridge that and how do we overcome? On the G part of it, again, I think the complexity of the business requires a much better governance structure. And we need to do many of these things much faster. The various reports demonstrate that we are way off our 2-degree mark. And I think we need to really enhance the speed and the technology and the money that is required to bring about the transformation. So great opportunity, but if we miss the opportunity, miss the bus, then it will be disastrous for us.
Chaitanya, if I could just add one line, that is inclusive human talent, inclusive gender human talent should be everyone's focus. Anshula and I have signed up for it, and I hope all of you sign up for it too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, madam. Definitely. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed this conversation with all of you. Yes, Anshula, ma'am. You have anything
I'm saying this is a very gender balanced panel, so 2 each.
Absolutely, ma'am. Thank you so much. I was saying really enjoyed this conversation. I'm sure a lot of insights. I wish we'd have more time, but that's all we had. And thank you so much, Anshula ma'am, Kaku ma'am, and Dr. Sinha. Thank you so much. And over to you, Kavya. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.